This is Better Minecraft, a mod pack that adds a ton of new items, biomes, structures, and even dimensions. But we'll get into that one later. For now, it's day one. And I spawned in a birch forest. The first thing I did was collect all of my tutorial quests. This mod pack does add quest lines. And then I looked up and saw my first structure. Yo! What the? And then I proceeded to mine my first tree. Excuse me? Right after, I quickly crafted a crafting table, some sticks, and then a pickaxe. And then once I had my pickaxe, I went and mined enough stone to make a stone pickaxe. I mean, you've all seen this before. Now that I have full stone tools, I went to mine my first tree and then quickly learned that it chops down the entire tree. And then I began to head over to the structure I saw in the beginning. On the way there, I killed some sheep and looted some smaller structures I found. Like this hut, which had a bow. Oh, and then this hut, which had wheat that surprised me for some reason. Why does it look so good? And then I began to climb the tower and found a bunch of furnaces, which are rightfully mine, and then got a few enchanted books from the bookshelves. Afterward, I smelted sand to craft a bottle enchanting because I thought it would unlock a new chapter in the book, but it didn't. Then I went up to the structure to find out it's a mushroom cow village, but I quickly found out that they're aggressive. Yo, what? And I began to loot the village. I used the iron to craft a pickaxe, and then started to cook up the food I found in the chest. Once it started to turn night, I ran out and decided to kill some of the cows. I'm dead. Oh. What? Alright. That's good. I spent a little bit more time killing all the cows, but this time with a good bit more caution. Once enough of them were dead, I ran to a new building. Once I got to the new building, I went to sleep. Day 2 started with me looking at all the new uses for gold, and then I started heading to the next house to loot. Make some iron and coal. I don't really need. While I was looting the place, I mined most of the bookshelves, and then in the next building, I smelted up some iron and cooked some food, and quickly used the iron to craft some iron armor and an iron axe. Right before leaving and getting swarmed. But thanks to the dumbasses not being able to climb more than 2 feet up a ladder, I killed them. They can come up. That's always nice. But when I was looting the last house, I got taken into the back by about 12 dudes and... Alright, I'm dead. I'm dead right here. Once I got all my stuff though, I ended up heading out because now I wanted to find a village. And thankfully, right over the mountain, there was one. Oh, a village. So, the first thing I did once I got there was remove all their books because smart people rebel. And then I took the alchemy table, which I didn't even know was a thing. The next thing I did was steal their waystone and then go to bed. On day 3, I headed out of the village and went back to explore. Do I make a 100 days arc video? Let me know. Let me know in the comments if you want to see a 100 days arc video because I really want to make one. Next thing you know, I stepped in some random white sticky stuff and realized that it's snail mucus. Snail mucus? Okay. While climbing the mountain, I ran into a pillager and then realized he was connected to one of the smaller pillager outposts. Okay, after killing the pillagers, I looted their chest and left the villager for dead. Next thing you know, I found a cave with a little bit of iron, so I decided to smelt it and then go a little deeper. I kept going down and just kept finding a bunch of coal, but eventually the cave ended, so I headed back. Then I mined up my furnace and headed out the cave. And very quickly after leaving, I found another huge cave, so I decided to go down. On the way down in the cave, I saw these weird blue things, and I headed over to try to grab one, see what they were. But then I realized it's just icicles. Once I got deep enough in the cave, I saw these weird blue crystals and decided to mine them. Shortly after, I saw an enderman and decided I wanted to kill it. So I dug a little hole in the wall and killed it. And then I finally checked what that weird blue shard I mined earlier was, and it turns out it's an upgrade for iron tools, which makes them slightly better, but still a little worse than diamond. A little bit deeper in the cave while mining urns, I ended up seeing some diamonds. Oh, diamonds, right? Oh, sick. And then I mined the iron next to it and proceeded to head deeper in the cave. And then I broke the first rule of Minecraft. Oh. Holy. But a little bit later, I found a weird structure and decided to head to it. What's this? I found the structure? Yeah, so I'm still not sure what this was. I'm pretty sure it was some type of dungeon, but I was not prepared for what it had. Gonna go break all these. Yo. 2 god apple? Hold up. So, yeah, it had some really good loot, and this was just the beginning of it. But before I looted the rest of it, I decided to upgrade my axe and make a new pickaxe and upgrade it to cryo marble. cryo marble. Shortly after, I went and destroyed another cave spider spawner and found another diamond sword and another god apple. But it started raining mobs, so more god apples? Seriously? Oh, there's strays? How many diamond swords are there? Anyway, next thing you know, I found myself on the second floor and I found a bunch of diamonds. Oh my. Holy grail of diamonds right here. But the rest of the chests weren't as good, so. Until this one. Okay, well, there's more. This is also the point where I started to learn that I could freeze when I was shot by a stray with frozen arrows. Really cool. He has like ice-tipped arrows. And then it happened. I froze. Why can't I hit him? Wait, am I dead? What's happening? I'll tell you what's happening. When you freeze, you get weakness. Then after barely escaping that near-death experience, I stood by the lava to warm up. But I ran out of food. And now I'm out of food. Alright, this is really sketchy now. And on my way out, I got attacked by some spiders. Please, no. Leave me alone. But eventually, I just dug my way up. And once I got to the surface, I went to sleep. On the surface, while I was starving, I put down my smoker and then went out and killed a bunch of fish. I made a boat and then started to explore. Now that I had some food, I stumbled across where I thought I wanted to keep my base. Oh, wait. I might have found my base. So I went up onto the mountain and started to look around for where I would actually build my base. And then I stumbled upon this flat area at the top of the mountain and decided it would go here. So I made a crafting table and then made a shovel so I could destroy the dirt and flatten the area out. Now that the area was a little bit more flat, I ended up putting my waystone down, putting my beds down, then I made a chest and put a bunch of furnaces down. Now that I have a little bit of a base down, I made a diamond pickaxe. And then I made a diamond chest plate. And I'll save. The next thing I did was start to smelt up all my iron. Then I looked at the recipe for a waystone and realized that it's really just an ender pearl and a few other things. So first I have to craft an abyss watcher, which takes 2 flint, so I started mining the gravel right by my base. After crafting it though, I realized that I don't have any obsidian. So I went to bed. First thing, day 6, I crafted a shield. And then I saw this tower on a mountain and I wanted to go exploring. So that's what I did. Once I got to the tower, I looted it and it was mostly just full of food until I got to the top. Up here, top of the tower. Oh my god, wait. And then I just kept exploring the rest of the day and I found another tower. I got an enchanting table, but that's pretty much it from this tower. Kind of like the world just doesn't feel dead and alone like Minecraft. But for real, this mod pack is like actually sick. And I just sat there like watching for a minute for some reason, so. But right after I went back to exploring. Day 7 started in the middle of nowhere. But eventually when I did get back to my base, I crafted up a bunch of bookshelves. Then went down the hill a little bit to place my enchantment table. Right after, I made a new diamond pickaxe and went to enchant it and... And then I got efficiency 4 on my second pickaxe, so I combined it with the Fortune 3 book I got on the first day. Fortune 3 book. So Fortune 3. And then I put the Obsidian Breaker 3 book on it as well. That pretty much was the whole day. Wow, hold up. Okay, it's raining. I do have to go to sleep. The first thing I did on day 8 was run over to this lava stream because I wanted to start getting obsidian so I could go to the Nether. But it was only 1 lava. I knew that, but I'm an idiot, so... Wait, is it? Oh my. Yo, I can almost insta-mine that. Yeah, so it turns out Obsidian Breaker was actually really good. But now that I have 1 obsidian, instead of waiting to go to the Nether, I decided to use it to make a waystone. So I gathered some smooth stone before heading back to my base. And then I crafted the waystone. Then I went and explored and I found a witch hut, so I looted that. It had a speed potion and a few more other potions, but that's it. Shortly after, I headed to the birch village I found and put the waystone back because now I can teleport to my base in the birch village. So I teleported back to my base, and once I did, I crafted a bottle of enchanting and threw it on the ground for some reason. I don't know. I started day 9 by putting down the alchemist table, and then I crafted my first fletching table. Could probably guess why. And right after, I went to mining a bunch of trees. Once I had about a half row of wood, I started to mine gravel so I could get some flint, not realizing I could just use my fortune pickaxe. And then I crafted my second fletching table. Next thing you know, I was at the birch village trading sticks. But once I got back at night, I ran around looking for an enderman I saw on my map, but I never found it. Day 10 started with me cluelessly heading over to this weird copper structure. So realizing that this is the witch hut, I ran in and got scared. After I healed up a tiny bit, I ran up and went to the second floor and killed a bunch of spiders and destroyed the spawner. Of course. Next thing you know, I ran back and got my stuff. The witch hut had nothing, so I headed to the Woodland Mansion. Once I got near, I saw this boss bar appear, and then went in and started exploring. Until I went down the stairs and this happened. I think I found the boss. Okay. Okay, I'll leave, bro. I'm not actually here to meet a 13-year-old girl. And for some reason, I went back down to try to find him. Oh, is that him? Is he spawning something? Oh, he just arrows just don't damage him. Okay. Okay, I'm leaving. After that incident, I headed back to the Birch Village, where I would teleport back to my base and go to sleep. Day 11, I started by looking at the map, and I saw a spruce village, so I decided to head over to it. Once I got to the village, the first thing I did was claim the waystone so I could teleport. And then I went around and looted all of the village, but it really didn't have much loot for me, so I headed back to the base. Once I got back to the base, I crafted a double chest and sorted my chest out a little bit, but not too much. I wasted the rest of the day just kind of messing around until eventually I wanted to go get more obsidian so I could actually go to the Nether, which I did. Once I had enough obsidian, I started to head back to the spruce village so I could teleport back to my base. Day 12, and I headed into the Nether for the first time. Once I was there, I noticed a weird structure, but then realized it was just right in front of me. Oh no, it's that thing. I don't know, I didn't see that. So I headed over to it. Once I was at the structure, I didn't find any loot, and I had no reason to be there, so I just headed out. I still don't know what it was, though. The next thing I noticed was this weird, almost Nether fortress-like structure, and I had to bridge down to it, but thankfully in this mod, you can actually build under the block you're on. That's amazing. Once I got to the towers, I unlocked an achievement for entering a Nether fortress's towers. But I did spot another fortress in the distance. It's not a fortress, but it's... That is beautiful. I did eventually drop down and walk around for a minute, but the towers didn't really have anything to offer, so I headed back up. Once I got back up, I decided to head back to my Nether portal because I wasn't quite well prepared enough for the Nether. When back in the overworld, I did spot an oak village on my map, and I really wanted to go check it out, so a little bit later in the day, that's exactly what I did. Funny enough, the village actually turned out not to be a village and just to be a random house or two, but I continued exploring anyway. I found this ruin portal, but it didn't really have too much loot, so... The next thing I did was build a little shelter so I could kill this enderman, and then a second one actually ended up coming, and I still didn't get a pearl. Once I found an actual village, I saw these copper golems and accidentally hit one, but it does teach you how to build one, and that was kind of cool. Next thing I did was drop down and get the waystone of the village so I could teleport, and then I went to sleep in a bed in the village. First thing I did day 13 was teleport to my base and grab a diamond hoe. And then right back to the oak village, I mined all the hay bales. Quickly after that, I found my favorite biome in this entire mod pack. So, even a minute later, I found another birch village. So obviously, I got the waystone. And then I headed over to some weird circular structure, which turned out to be a safe haven, I believe. The safe haven didn't really have anything, so while still exploring, I went over to this tower because I actually thought this looked kind of cool. This is cool. While I was going up, I noticed that the tower just had a lot of honey in it for some reason. It was every single barrel on every single layer just had honey. And one layer even had honey blocks. Shortly after leaving the tower though, I stumbled upon a graveyard and I raided it. But it didn't really have anything, so I just put my waystone down and headed back to my house. Day 14, I started my day by crafting some empty bookshelves. And then I put all my enchanted books in them. And then I crafted a bunch of bread. Right after that, I decided it was finally time to go back to the Nether because I wanted to go to the Nether fortress. Once I got to the Nether fortress, I started climbing this giant staircase with lava down the middle, and I had to fight a few wither skeletons, but besides that, once I made it to the top, I blocked the lava off. And then I looted all these barrels, but none of them really had anything. So I just went around and ran across all these bridges, and I tried to kill a bunch of blazes, but I couldn't really find many at first. I also found this chest with a couple diamonds, but then I saw this giant flying thing and actually got scared of it. What the fuck? Wait. Where'd it go? I'm scared. But then I saw some blazes and got distracted killing them. Next thing you know, I found a blaze spawner, and being the genius I am, I decided to block it all off with wood. And then I just killed some blazes. Once I realized I had enough blaze rods for the end, I just kind of headed back to my base. On my way back, I ran into ruby ore, which I didn't know was a thing, but that was kind of cool. Once I returned towards the end of day 15, I just emptied my inventory. And then on the night, I went over to the mountain with the sakura trees. And on my way back, I did fight random trolls for some reason, but besides that, nothing really happened, and I just went to sleep. On day 16, I headed over to the birch village, and that's because I wanted to explore more. While I was exploring, I found a church, which actually had some amethyst, which is something I needed. And then, as I continued exploring, I came across probably one of the coolest villages I've ever seen. It was made out of bone blocks and spruce, which was pretty sick. Inside the village, there obviously wasn't really good loot, but I stole their beds. And then once I got outside, I stole a bunch of their hay bales because food has recently become a little bit of a problem. I also sat there for way too long trying to find out if the bundle is something you like equip or place down, but eventually I did find out that you just put stuff in it in your inventory, and then it was straight back to mining hay bales. Next thing you know, obviously I got the waystone and renamed it Bone Village. The next thing I did was loot this. What are they called? Wait. I looted the blah blah blah. I looted the thing. What is it called? Right after I finished looting the village though, there was another village right across the lake, so I headed over to that. Once I was done stimming, I made the copper golem, then used the waystone to head back to my base. Once I was back to my base, I crafted a resonance table, and then I placed it on a block of lapis because you need to do that. Day 17, I messed around with the resonance table and the lapis block for some reason. I didn't even do anything. I just like punched it and circled it. I don't know why. And then I got smacked off my mountain by wind, and then I headed into the nether. The reason why I came back to the nether was because ruby tools, instead of using ruby tools instead of using sticks, take something called netherite, and there was some at the nether fortress towers, so I went and grabbed a bunch of that before heading back to my base. Once I got back to the overworld, my game crashed. But when I logged back in, I made myself a ruby sword. And then I made full ruby armor besides my diamond chestplate because the diamond was better. I headed over to the sakura trees and gathered a bunch of their saplings. And then once I had a couple of each type of sapling, I headed back to my base. And once I got back to my base, I went to sleep. Day 18, I got jumped by a zombie, but quickly pieced him up because he ain't shit. And I went to the nether to try to get a bunch of bone meal, but the full bone blocks don't let you turn them into bone meal, so I just went back to my base. Once I got back to my base, I turned a bunch of bones into bone meal because I needed a lot of sakura wood for my base, so I just started bone mealing and farming the trees. I stopped when I ran out of bone meal, and I had about half a row of logs, so I figured that would be good. I also decided I wanted to use stone brick for a large foundation for my base, so I went down to a nearby ravine and just mined out a huge area of stone. Day 19 started off by me turning a bunch of the stone I got into stone bricks. And then I found the spot where I'm pretty sure I wanted to build my base, so I destroyed a bunch of trees. Once I was done clearing trees from the area, I made a ruby shovel because I needed a flat area to put my base on. But before I could insta-mine dirt, I needed to enchant my shovel, so I went into the nether and started mining quartz for XP. But when I enchanted it, I only got unbreaking 3. So it was back to the nether to mine more quartz. And once I got back, I enchanted my shovel again and actually got efficiency 4. Oh my god. And right before going to sleep, I combined both of my shovels to make an unbreaking 3, vein mining, and efficiency 4 ruby shovel. Once I woke up on day 20, I started mining out in a flat area. I used some of the dirt from the area I just mined to fill in a creeper hole and a bunch of holes around the area just to get the terrain a little nicer. Once I had a pretty flat area, I went ahead and laid out the foundation for my base. Once I had a little bit of an outline, I built a stairway up to where my base would actually be. Next thing you know, I was putting a trim on the stairs. Once I finished putting the trim around the stairs, I started to fill in the actual floor. And then I had a creeper explode like 20 miles away from me somehow. And then went to fill in the rest of the platform. Once day 21 started, I began to lay out the pillars for where my base would be, which was just sakura logs that were stripped. I crafted some barrels because I thought they were going to look like the sakura barrels, but I had to figure out that you actually need a carpentry table. Once I had my carpentry table down, I turned all my barrels into sakura barrels, and then I spent the rest of the day just laying out the pillars for where my base would go. At the start of day 22, I made a bunch more sakura barrels, and then I went over to the funny biome because I thought I wanted to use calcite on my walls originally, but I decided to use diorite instead. And yeah, mining diorite literally took up the rest of my day. And clearly the Minecraft gods hate me because on day 23 I woke up to this. and I about punched a hole in my monitor. But anyway, I started quickly crafting up chests just so I could gather everything before it despawns. Once I had everything back in the chest, I started sorting it like a tiny bit again, but really nothing too big, so. After that situation though, I went over to the pillars I built, and I started to fill in the walls with the diorite. I also got like hit by wind. I thought that was kind of funny. Soon after though, I dug out the area for the windows and realized that my pillars were one too short, so I went up and built all those up one layer. Then I started to build a trim on the windows, which weren't there yet, but yeah. But then I also realized that my walls were too short, so I had to extend my walls. On day 24, I expanded the walls back because I realized that the interior of the base was kind of small. At the end of the day, I did actually get a little bit of work done on my trim. On day 25, I crafted a bunch of cherry trapdoors because that was what I was going to use for my window. The next thing I did was start to extend the platform that the base was on. I had to do this because I expanded the base so much that it actually was reaching the edge of the platform. But I didn't have enough stone bricks, so back to mining out this weird square in the side of a mountain. Once I had enough stone to make a bunch more stone bricks, I went around and placed it all around my base. And then I went over to another part of the mountain and grabbed some dirt so I could do some terraforming because the platform was getting pretty big. On day 26, I walked forward and then turned around and I actually saw a creeper walk over my bed, so thank God I moved. I restarted my game and joined back in, this happened. So I quickly collected all my enchanted books on the ground, and then for some reason my carpentry table duplicated, and there was an invisible one that was fully functional, which was kind of weird. Anyway, shortly after I crafted a bunch of cherry fences because I wanted to use them as the windows on the side of my base. And at first I tried this height, but then it kind of looked weird, so I moved it up one block and it looked alright. I also think I've been pronouncing the name of the wood wrong. I was saying Sakura, but I think it's like Sakura or something. It's spelled like that, but I don't really know. So I grabbed some of the funny wood type stairs, and I decided to put them around on the pillars. Once I was done with that, I went to the door frame, and I was messing around with a bunch of like trims around the door frame, and I put some sideways slabs, which by the way, you can do that. You can put slabs in any orientation on this, which is very cool, but I didn't really like the design, so I took it down. The next thing I did was mess around with an overhanging roof on the front door, and I came up with this, and I thought it looked pretty nice, so I kept it. Now that I at least have like walls around my base, I decided to go ahead and put the carpentry table down because I wanted to start moving in here soon. For some reason, I put my bed on top of the carpentry table. I guess I like saw blades up my cheeks, but I don't really know. Day 27 started with me crafting a ton of chests. So obviously the next thing I did was start to lay all the chests out, and I decided I wanted all to go right here. Then I kind of put this pillar here just to separate where the chest would go and something on the other side. And once I filled out all the chests I had, I turned around and there was an enderman standing there, which kind of jump scared me. And yeah, I actually got a pearl, finally. A block on my roof, which actually made it look 10 times better. And then I went back to my little chest stack, and I mined up a few of the chests, so I could start moving stuff into my new base. Once I got to my new base, the first chest I made was a wood chest. Right after making the wood chest, I went ahead and placed all my furnaces down inside the base. I'm gonna spare you the pain of moving all my items to my new base, because it's really not that deep. But yeah, the rest of the day was just sorting items. So I spent a good bit of day 28 just sorting items again, but once I walked out of my base for the first time, this happened. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this creeper infestation. So I quickly filled the hole, and then I actually finished the trim on the windows today, so. Towards the end of the day, I ended up having to move my stairs that were around the pillars up one block because I realized that they were too low. And then I changed some of the stairs out for slabs so I could put cherry stairs. The rest of the night was spent messing around with like the roof overlay, trying to make it look good, and I came up with something that looked decent. I started day 29 by putting my second window in, and then I put the pillar in the middle of the other side, and after that I made a little pond because I thought it would look nice, and yeah, it looked alright. I put some sugarcane around it. Now that I'm on the idea of upgrading my base with little ponds and stuff, I made a little waterfall right in front of my base, put some gravel and sugarcane in it, and I thought it looked kind of cool. Day 30, and I started the day by running over to the other side of my base and making an even bigger pond. And then I filled the pond in with water. Right after I put a gravel floor in. The next thing I did was put some sugarcane around, and then I crafted an abyss watcher, and quickly after crafted a waystone. I also moved my old waystone into the middle of my base. And then I teleported to the spruce village and completely forgot I had bad omen. So a raid started, and I decided to stay and fight. That was a bad idea. The first wave went by really smoothly, then the second wave led into day 31, and I found the last villager hiding in a house. 2 waves later though, it got a little bit sketchy, getting in situations like this. Then then I had my first encounter with these guys. Yeah, they shoot fireworks and teleport when you hit them. Obviously. And then I had my first encounter with a necromancer, probably my best friend now, because they literally just don't let you hit them. But anyway, I got back and fought someone named the Inquisitor, who's pretty much just a mini boss. So using the giant brain I have, I trapped him. The next wave, I got to fight whatever this guy was, which was probably 10 times worse with the teleporting away. Then there were 2 weird witches sitting in this thing. But eventually, I had the teleporting guy left, and that's it. What? And he did his thing and died. And there wasn't much day left, so when I got back to my base, I crafted a new ruby helmet because my old one broke during the raid. Day 32, I grabbed a bunch of logs because I'm ready now that I have Hero of the Village to trade sticks. And then over at the Birch Village, that's exactly what I did. I started to trade until I couldn't anymore. I also found out you can place sticks, so I did that for a minute. And then I went back to my base and crafted more fletching tables. But afterwards, it was to the spruce village, because now that I can insta-mine trees, I went to mine the big spruce trees so I could get more logs to turn into more sticks. I swear that's not this whole video this time. After I got a bunch of wood, I headed back to the birch village, and now I had a full inventory of logs, and I was ready to trade. So I just traded a bunch. And then I waited 4 or 5 minutes for the trades to reset, and then started trading again on day 33. And then about halfway through the day, I went back to my base and grabbed all the emeralds I had collected and a blast furnace because I wanted to get an armor so I could get full diamond armor. So back at the village now, I placed the blast furnace down and waited for the villager to come over and take his job. Once the villager came and got his job, I went ahead and bought a bunch of iron helmets to level him up. Now that he's leveled, I bought a bunch of chainmail leggings, and then he ran out of trades for emeralds that could level him up easily. So it was back to trading sticks, just until the armorer's trades reset, and then I went and bought a bunch of helmets. I also bought an enchanted bow from one of the Fletchers because I realized eventually I would need one. And when it turned night, I went to sleep in the village. Day 34, and I just traded a bunch of sticks to start the day, but eventually I upgraded the armor and got my first 2 pieces of diamond armor from him. It is actually gonna be so nice. And then shortly after, I upgraded him again and got the rest of the set. Once I got back to my base, I combined the boots since they already had Unbreaking 2 on both of them, and got a pair of Unbreaking 3 boots. And then I made a grindstone because now I had unlimited diamond armor and I wanted to enchant my diamond armor now. So I sat there rolling enchantments until eventually I got an Unbreaking 3 Protection 4 Thorns 2 chestplate. But the chestplate was like half durability, so I combined it with another one to bring it back to full. Then I spent the rest of the day just rolling enchantments, but I didn't have enough XP to enchant anything, so I just went to sleep. But first, I stocked my inventory to go trade the next day. Day 35, and it started with me crafting a grindstone because I wanted a toolsmith, but I didn't realize that that made a weaponsmith. So, weapons. Anyway, after that, I started trading a bunch of sticks again. Until eventually the villagers stopped wanting a bunch of sticks, so I went over and mined some coal because I realized I'd need it eventually. Next thing you know, I found myself in the cave mining a bunch of gravel so I could get flint to make more fletching tables. And then I was mining a bunch of coal. But eventually I did leave the cave and make a new Fletcher and trade with him. Once I finally got back to my base at level 30, I enchanted my pants with prop 4. Next thing I did was spend a century rolling enchantments until eventually I got prop 4 on my helmet. But I once again wasn't level 30. But before the day ended, I actually wanted toolsmiths this time, so I made a couple smithing tables for when I went back to the village. And that's exactly where day 36 started, trading with my new toolsmith. Eventually he did upgrade, but he didn't have any good trades to upgrade him further, so I just had to wait on the stone axes to reset. A lot of the day I was just sitting around waiting for trades to reset, but eventually I did get bored and went to the nearby cave to mine a bunch of coal. But I eventually realized I was over level 30 and I headed back to my base, where I would enchant my new diamond helmet with prop 4 and Unbreaking 3. And then I saw I had a feather falling 4 enchantment on my boots, so I started to work on my XP again. And I accidentally automatically sorted my chest. No. And then I made another blast furnace so I could replace the one I took in my base. At the end of the day, it was back to the village, because I still needed to enchant my boots. The first half of day 37 was spent tweaking because I couldn't find my armor. Eventually I just gave up though and traded with my toolsmith. And finally I unlocked the second tier of the toolsmith and I could get iron tools. And then this villager answered my prayers and gave me a 1 emerald trade for a diamond hoe. Then it was back to my base because I was over level 30, where I would enchant my boots with feather falling 4, but that's all I got unfortunately. And then I made a piglin bartering station just to find out what it did. On day 38 I combined my feather falling 4 and Unbreaking 3 boots. And while enchanting I almost got snuck up on by this creeper. I also made some cherry fences and put a light in the middle of my pond because I thought it looked kind of cool. Next thing you know, I wanted to go exploring again, so I teleported to the farthest place I knew, the Spruce Village. Once I was at the Spruce Village, I just began to run south, until I ran into a snow temple. Once I was in it though, I mined down and I thought it was the same as a desert temple, so I dropped because I thought it was a pressure plate in the middle, but I was pretty wrong. You're kidding. You're joking. Yeah, I was pretty lucky to survive that, but I also found an Encyclopedia of Eden, which is just a book about a different world. More on that later, because I didn't know that yet. As I left the snow temple, I headed over to a village that was right by, and I pretty much just did the basics of looting the village and gathering the waystone. Next thing you know though, I was off again, and I saw this really cool looking tower, but before I headed over to it, I ended up going to sleep. First thing on day 39, I headed over to the tower and realized it was ruled by pillagers. The tower didn't have much loot, but it did have another Encyclopedia of Eden, which kept getting me just more and more curious every time I found one. The next thing I saw off in the distance was a snow pillager outpost, and can I just say, it looked amazing, so I followed it, even though they don't have any loot. Alright, is it gonna let me... There was a witch's hut right down the mountain, but for some reason it started a raid at the witch's hut, which was weird, and I got trapped in this building and fireworks shot at me, so I ran. I don't want to do this. Let me go. I saw this weird castle looking thing and went over to it, which I shouldn't have. It was full of these chillagers, which were just pillagers that shoot frozen arrows at you, which got really annoying really quick. I'm dying to the cold, I'm dying to the cold. But just in case before I went in the actual castle, I put a bed down in one of their little igloos and set my spawn. Alright, you're dying. You're dying for that one, buddy. A little bit later, though, I found myself in an interesting situation. Eventually, I climbed to the top, though, and was met by a friend. Whoa! Okay, I'm leaving. That was a lie. I didn't leave. What am I actually supposed to do? Like, keep it fun. Wait, like... Okay. Wait. I'm alive. Wait, no, I'm dead. I'm dead to the cold. I'm dead to the cold. And then I realized I could just cheese the whole thing, so I did that. It took a long time, though. Literally like 2 more hits. Alright, that was light. Literally light work. Once that guy was dead, I looted the place and saw a diamond block in the middle, so it made it all worth it. I mean, I guess I'll take it. And then I ran off to a nearby village and went to sleep. First thing on day 41, I claimed the waystone, and then saw another ice fortress off in the distance, which I did not go to. The next things I saw were another snow pillager outpost and another giant tower off in the distance that I wanted to go to as well. I also got smacked like a mile from something. What the? And then I started heading over to the tower because it looked really cool. I also saw a mammoth, which I really wish I killed because I didn't know it was a mini-boss at the time. Once I finally got to the tower, I found a random chest in the middle of the ice, which was kind of cool. It didn't really have much in it. Most of the way up the tower, I found these chiseled stone altars, which I'm pretty sure is where you spawn a boss. And then I got the next chest, but it wasn't too good. The rest of the day was just running and falling into powdered snow, so I'll just spare you that. Day 42, and I found a huge structure. So I broke into the side of it and started killing the pillagers below. Next thing you know, I dropped down lower and killed them with my sword. Do I drop hatch? Once I looted the first chest, I said this. I don't think this place is about to be worth it at all. And I was very right. Next thing you know, I was killing a bunch of pillagers through a hole in the wall. And then I was looting the library, which actually did have some decent loot, but then I got jumped. I hate... Vex is actually has to be one of the... Wait, I'm scared. Wait, Yep, I just died thousands of blocks away with no spawn point, so I had to start heading over on foot. Beforehand though, I did make a quick stop at my base and get some diamond armor and a diamond sword. About halfway through day 43, I did actually arrive at my loot. And once I had my loot, I killed about 1 million pillagers through this hole in the wall. And I'm not joking, they just kept coming from somewhere. After looting the building and getting nothing, I went up to the roof and still got nothing. So I left the base and went to a villager house and placed down a waystone I stole earlier from a village that I found along the way. Once I was back in my base, I really just spent the rest of the night sorting out my loot. I spent the first half of day 44 chopping down trees in the spruce forest, and then the other half of the day I was just trading sticks all day long. Day 45, and I wanted to get mending because I knew everything eventually would break, and began to roll as trades until I got mending. Eventually, I did actually get mending towards the end of the day, but I didn't have any books, so I went to the other villager that was taking the trade, bought a bookshelf, and destroyed it for books. Day 46 started with some relaxing stick trading. After all that fun, I was level 38 and decided to work on enchanting my boots and helmet more. And by the end of the day, let's just say my armor was decent, but I still needed to combine 2 pairs of boots, and I didn't have enough XP. 90% of day 47 was just chopping trees again, and the other 10% was just trading more sticks. Day 48 was the exact same. Day 49 is where things got kind of crazy. Halfway through day 50, I decided to craft a bunch of blocks of emeralds. And then I grabbed all the beds out in a chest and headed to the Nether because I wanted to get some Netherite. While in the Nether, I spent almost a year trying to find a spot I could actually dig low enough to get to Netherite. And while doing so, I actually broke my Fortune 3 pickaxe, which just reminded me more why I need mending on it. No! So I headed back and put all the beds up and went to sleep crying that night. I started day 51 by combining a couple of shovels I got from villager trading on previous days. Then I decided it was time to explore more. So I teleported to a far off village, then began to head east. The first structure I came across was a jungle temple, and I made this genius statement. It's like floating too. I don't think it's meant to do that. After realizing how smart I actually am, I decided to head in from the side. Okay. Once I headed down the stairs, I saw a spawner and realized it was a regular spider spawner. Then I also got jumped by a cave spider, not sure where it came from though. A little bit further, there was a secret room with nothing in it. But then I went back up to the top and I found a somewhat hidden chest, and it actually had a couple diamonds, so. But then I headed out. I also just found out by accident about the sleeping bag recipe. Wait, what's the sleeping bag do? And went to bed on a sleeping bag for the first time. Oh, that's cool. Day 52, I continued exploring and I ran into a village. After I left the village, I ran into a jungle pillager outpost, and that was pretty cool looking. And I found this weird like castle top sticking out of the ground, so I headed down it, and there was just a hallway with a bunch of doors, and then the same thing on a second layer. There was like not really any loot in it though. There was one room that was kind of cool. It was like this conference room looking thing. But after looting and looking through that, I just headed out. Once I left, I continued east, but I didn't run into anything for the rest of the day. I eventually found a desert and a mesa, which had a giant pyramid, and I had to head to it, obviously. Once I got to the pyramid, I dug into it because for some reason, I didn't feel like going through any other way. And I actually dug right below a chest, which had a spawner on top of it, and a decent bit of loot, actually. The next thing I did was build up into the central room, but I quickly learned what the spawner was actually spawning. Hi. Once the Vindicators were dead, I dug out of the pyramid because there was no more loot for me there. While I was running around in the desert, I found these chili peppers, and obviously I had to grab them. Caliente. Then shortly after, I found more chili peppers. I actually did end up going to the desert temple though after collecting the chili peppers. So once I got in the desert temple, I dug down, then eventually over and dropped down and broke the pressure plate. Somehow the only thing I wanted from this place was the gunpowder in the chest. After looting the desert temple, I ran over to a nearby portal and took nothing because it had nothing I wanted. Then I found this cool little like destroyed building thing, which had no loot, but it was cool. Shortly thereafter though, I found another pyramid and broke into it, and after killing the Vindicators, looted the chest but only took the gunpowder again. Once I left the pyramid, I saw a giant moving rock, and then it started running at me, and once I killed it, I realized it was a rhino. And then I ran through the empty desert for quite a while longer and found an empty shrine, so I put the waystone in it to head back to my base. When back at my base, I just emptied my inventory. I ended up getting 6 diamonds from that trip, so that was kind of cool. And a couple new plants including ginger, onions, and chili peppers. At the very end of the day, I went outside and peeped the sunset real quick. Dang! And then went to sleep. Day 54, and it's back to my roots, I guess you could say. I spent the whole day mining wood and then trading sticks. Yeah. The first half of day 55, I continued trading sticks with Boris. Once I got back to my base, I put down a jukebox, and then I prepared to go on another adventure. And this time, I would be heading north, and then I would go east again. And so, I headed out on my adventure. In the beginning, I killed a few innocent animals, but soon I got tired and was a little bit sick of murdering the innocent, so I went to sleep. Day 56, I woke up and then went to my favorite biome in this entire mod pack. Like, just watch this. This looks so cool. Oh, it's another bathhouse. Yep, I found a bathhouse, which is a really cool structure that I found in, like, a creative world I went into and scouted out before starting this world. If you've ever seen Spirit Away, a bathhouse is just like the building from that. And the bathhouse was right next to one of those copper witch huts. So, of course, first I looted that. There was nothing in it. So then I headed up the bathhouse. Once I finally got towards the top of the bathhouse, I ran into my first ghost, which drop blindness potions after they die. Can it not die? Oh, After killing a few more though, I headed further and further into the bathhouse. Once I got further though, I found a bunch of amethyst shards in a chest. Now the loot here wasn't too good, but it was still really fun exploring. And this mod pack adds so much crazier stuff than this that I don't get into until later in the video, and I still didn't even get to explore all of it. At some point I opened a door though, and I got absolutely jumped, but made quick work of them. Soon thereafter though, I did end up leaving just by jumping out the side. And then I came across a swamp village, which was actually like a really nice looking village. It was kind of cool. And I'm gonna just let y'all watch me walk around for a minute because this is kind of looking cinematic for a little. Okay, tell me that wasn't cool looking. Day 57 and I came across a witch village, which was really cool. It had everything a regular village did, but it was just witch huts. I didn't really spend too much time there though, because there wasn't much to do, so I headed off again. And it took me forever to find anything again until I came across this random circle of mangrove trees that were there because a witch village spawned. There's just like, it just goes from like plains to dense mangrove. And since I didn't really feel like dealing with that right now, I kept going into a desert where I would find a really cool looking house with a fair bit of food and stuff. I found a new plant, asparagus. I'll take the seeds. And just before the day ended, I found another pyramid, which didn't really have much loot, but a fair bit of gunpowder. I woke up next to a rhino. I wish I could remember the night before, but I can't. After I left my new wife, I headed into another desert temple I found. And this one actually had some pretty good loot. I also came across this weird square thing, and I'm not sure what the purpose of it was. But this one was a lot bigger than the last ones. Once I got inside, I dropped down and found myself in a hallway. And then I quickly found a room with a chest. But before I could fully leave the chest, I got jumped. Alright, bruh. That's just not even necessary. Next thing I did was head down the staircase, which led me to an even bigger hallway, to where I would have to fight a bunch of things. After a few empty hallways, I found where the husks and skeletons were coming from, and destroyed their spawners, and then looted the chest. The chest for some reason only had a golden apple and some gunpowder. But then I ran down a random hall and destroyed some blocks to then find something I don't think I was supposed to find yet. Now while the first chest didn't have much but a couple armor trims and some gunpowder, the second chest gave me 5 diamonds and a wither skull. Genius. My wither skull. Yo, look at... Oh, it's a body. Shortly after, I ran into another room that was caged off, which gave me a bunch more gunpowder. It also had a tripwire that triggered seemingly nothing at first. Another thing I found was this button on the wall, so I broke behind it and followed the redstone. Eventually the redstone brought me to a hidden room that didn't have too much loot. Oh. I spent a little while longer looking for hidden loot, but since I couldn't find any, I headed out and went to sleep. The first thing that happened on day 59 was I found a little mini pyramid and my genius brain decided to mine it, and then I found a gold block. Wait, this is cool. Next to the little mini pyramid though, I found like a pillager fortress, which was really cool. There were no pillagers here though, and there wasn't much loot. And then I found this weird temple looking thing, which obviously I had to go inside of it and destroy it, which proved itself to be a good idea because I did actually find a chest. While I was there, I looked at my map and I saw something that looked like an ocean monument but above ground in the jungle, so of course I had to head to it. Once I got there, it looked like that's exactly what it was. So I collected a few blocks so I could build around when I got over to it, and then swam over to it. The first thing I noticed were all these redstone lamp things, which were kind of cool. I'll probably come back and get those eventually. But then I headed onto one of the arms of it, which looked pretty cool, but it looked like the building was corrupt into the mountain. So I quickly went over to the other side, and it appeared to be the same thing. But since no doesn't mean no, I actually mined down and didn't find anything. But the same couldn't be said for when I went up to the roof and mined through. When I was about 10 blocks deep, I was still nowhere near the middle, so if I took no for an answer, I wouldn't have made it in. That's not a life lesson though. Don't take my advice. But eventually though, I did make it in, and it was huge. Once I got in, I jumped over a railing and got jump scared by a charged creeper immediately. Next thing you know though, I was following tunnels around the place into new rooms. And this room really reminded me of like Ark Extinction, so I still want to make an Ark video. Please tell me you want an Ark video in the comments if you want one. For some reason though, I found myself parkouring on the weird portal frame looking things for absolutely no reason and missing every jump. Next thing you know though, I found myself falling into a stair trap. Yeah, I fell for one of those. Once I got out though, I continued to explore and I found this huge room full of emerald ore and iron blocks, and actually emerald blocks in a lot of places too. I found this thing that usually contains a bunch of gold blocks in an ocean monument, but it was full of emerald blocks instead, which was really cool, and I mined them up. In the same room, I also found my first chest, which was nothing special. Then, to make my grand escape, I escaped through a tunnel that was blocked off, and then mined down and fell all the way onto the other arm. Next thing you know, though, I was on top of the jungle monument sleeping, and never mind. Day 60, and I continued to explore. Right after leaving the jungle, I found myself in a dead mesa biome, which I really liked. And then soon I saw a mesa village, which was huge and probably one of my favorite villages so far. After I took a look around the mesa village, I went ahead and decided to leave and go back home. When back at my base, I emptied my inventory and sorted everything out, and then took the lily pads I got from the swamps and put them in my pond before getting attacked by the fucking like throwing axe committee or something. But I made quick work of them. Me being the idiot I am, I knew I would forget I had bad omen eventually, so I just decided to drop off the raid at a swamp village far away. I also realized I finally had XP again, so I put mending on my silk touch pickaxe. To finish off the day, I crafted a few smokers just so I could finish off the look of the 3 rows of furnaces, and I thought it looked pretty nice. On day 61, I crafted a new shield because my old one was almost broken, and then I spent a concerning amount of time leveling out the amount of coal in all of my furnaces. And then I went outside and just kind of looked around. It just looked so good. I want to build more stuff. So that's kind of what I did. I decided to go ahead and start work on my second floor of my base, so I built a little staircase heading up. At first, I filled the corners in with blocks, but I decided I didn't like that too much, so I changed it to upside down stairs. Yeah. Once I did that, I got some fence posts and put them under, and after a little bit of rearranging, I came out with this. Next thing you know, I'm on the second floor with the Sakura, yes, I said it right that time, and filled the whole roof in. Thank God I'm good at this game, because otherwise I would have misplaced a lot of slabs. Now that I'm done with the roof, I actually need to get some lighting inside my base, and these wall lanterns were dark for some reason. So I looked up torch in the item menu and found out that there's a bunch of different types of torches. So I head over to the carpentry table and found the dark oak torch, which was really cool looking. It was dark with like a pink flame, and it actually worked out really well. I still like the idea though of the soul lanterns, so I grabbed some chains and hung them from my ceiling. I actually like that. Day 62, and on day 62, I grabbed a bunch of diorite and began to build up the walls on my second floor. At first, it was full blocks, but when I dropped down to look at it again, I realized I didn't quite like how it looked. So I crafted a couple of slabs, and went back up there and then went upstairs to make a wall out of slabs. Once I decided I liked the slabs and how they allowed me to add a little bit more depth to the building, I went ahead and filled a lot more of the wall in. Before I filled the rest of the wall in though, I decided to put down a bunch of the logs just to make sure I liked how it looked. And I did. And by the end of the day, I had most of the first layer of the wall finished. At the beginning of day 63, I ran out of diorite and went to find some more. Eventually, kind of far away, I found a big canyon with a bunch of diorite. Once I had about 6 stacks of diorite, I decided it was time to head out. Once I got back to my base, I filled in the rest of the first layer of the wall. For the second layer, I went in a half slab and just started to go around and ring, but I only got about 1 ring done on the night of day 63. Day 64, I did the second ring. I spent the rest of the day just trying to figure out how I wanted the roof to look, but I couldn't really figure it out yet, so I just kind of gave up. Day 65, I grabbed all my beds because I'm headed back to the Nether to get some Netherite. Finally. So I found a spot and I mined down, and I mined into a piglin dungeon. But I continued mining, and eventually I was low enough. Then I found my first ancient debris. And the rest of 65 and 66 are both corrupt, but I did get a Fortune 3 Efficiency 4 pickaxe, so yeah. Day 67, I was looking through the quest log, and I found out about something called the Bumble Zone. And it said to go to the Bumble Zone, just throw an ender pearl into a bee's nest. So yeah, now I'm in a world full of honey. The first thing I saw was this honey slime, and when I killed it, it dropped sugar and slime balls, and that was kind of neat. Really, I was just in awe of being surrounded by a whole new world. Next thing you know, I jumped down into what I hoped was water. Once I got out of the water, I found myself stuck in a bunch of pollen. And I quickly found out it was a lot faster to just dig through the pollen and run through it. Next thing you know, I crashed though. And then I found this weird structure, so obviously I headed over to it. And I had to mine in by hand from in the water, so that was fun. When I was in there, I accidentally mined a honey block and then got swarmed by all the bees, so I hid. While I was hidden, I read about stuff like the honey shield and other stuff like that. And I mined some of these honey crystals, because that's what you use to craft most of the items in the bee zone. And then I opened my map and what the? Yo, what is this? Okay. Once I was in this thing, I started breaking the honey cocoons, because they gave me some stuff, and then I got jumped by cave spiders. So to leave the Bumble Zone, you just dig down until you fall in the void, so. Once I got back, I really just spent the entire day just sorting my inventory out, so that's what day 68 was. Day 69, I found out about another dimension called Eden Ring. In order to build the portal to the Eden Ring, you need this stuff. So first I needed a bunch of copper, so that's exactly what I went out and found, which took a long time. And then I went back to my base and started smelting it all. Then the rest of the day And then I crafted all my copper into blocks, and I need a lot more. But for now, I do need to wax all these copper blocks, so I went ahead and made a few campfires. And then I put all the campfires under the beehives by my base and sheared them off for the honeycomb. And then I went ahead and scouted out a spot to put the portal, and I found this spot, which I thought it would look nice at. So I started building it with just a 3x3 platform, and then I waxed all the blocks. And then I put all the corner blocks, and that's all the copper I had, so I went and tried to find some more. Next thing you know, I was at the big crater I found all the diorite in, and actually did end up seeing some copper. So I headed over to it and mined it all up, which gave me about a stack and 12 copper. Day 71, I woke up in the cave. On the way back to my base, I headed into the cave that goes through the hole in my mountain. I didn't stay there too long though. Once I got back to my base, I crafted a smithing table and also crafted a charm. And then I went through the book that had all of the charm recipes to try to find out which one I wanted to craft. And I didn't have the items to craft any of them. But one thing they all had in common was a glowstone nugget. So I headed to the Nether and got some glowstone. A couple recipes also required nautilus shells, so I jumped down to the river by my base and looked for drown, but then I realized I didn't spawn there, so I got up on the bridge and went to sleep. Day 72, and I crafted all the copper stairs I needed. Then I headed over and placed them all where they had to go. And then I waxed all the stairs and placed all the blocks of amethyst in the corner. The rest of the day was just messing around. I also crafted a bunch of torches and would just always carry those with me from now on. Day 73, I realized I needed a netherite upgrade template, so I headed into the nether. When I was on the map, I saw this giant structure and decided to head over to it. But before I got there, I found a tiny wither skeleton spawner, and the chest was actually pretty good. And then I got jumped by a bunch of piglins because I wasn't wearing gold. But after they were all dead, I continued my way over. Once I was about there, I fell into a hole into a giant arena. Now there was nothing in there but this weird pillar structure in the middle, and I realized you could break a block on it, so I actually broke it, which... What the... Alright bro, I'm gone. Chill. Yep, it spawned a giant gauntlet boss, and I couldn't fight that right now. So I headed into the village looking structure. This place was awesome. Probably my favorite structure. The first room I fell into was an enchanting room. And then when I walked out, I found the guards, which were just wither skeletons with armor. And then I continued exploring into the middle building, and I found these drawers with a bunch of different colors of obsidian, which was actually pretty cool. And then I had to fight a couple of these wither skeletons, and headed over to a structure that was absolutely full of them. And I'm not exaggerating, I went into the middle of it and broke a block just to see if there was a chest, and they started flowing through the floor. Eventually though, I just left and built up to the top where there actually were some chests, and they had some pretty good loot. The second chest though had 2 netherite blocks, and shortly after I found out the middle floor did have chests, so I just mined into the side of the wall and gathered them all. And then I found something called a diamond cincennite upgrade, which I didn't know even existed until now. Pretty much if you just make a tool out of the cincennite ore, which is another ore, and then combine it with a diamond in the smithing table, it becomes quite a bit stronger. The city got kind of boring, so I headed back over to the boss and decided I wanted to see what he was about. So after I mined a bunch of blocks just in case I need to escape, I went down and poked him in the eye. Now the boss didn't deal too much damage, but I was pretty scared because it's hard to escape and I already know he has multiple phases. And whenever I tried to build up to escape, he lasered me into the lava, so I just gappled and swam away. And then I evacuated back into the city. The city didn't really have too much loot after those few chests, but I did find a giant library area which was really cool and a bunch of enchantment tables. But once I tried to leave the city, there was a little bit of a problem. So, being the genius I am, I made my way back to the chest where I saw flint and steel, and I used all the obsidian I gathered from the chest earlier to make a portal. Once I got back to the overworld, I was, kind of far from anything. And day 74, when I was back, I just spent the entire day running to try to find a village, which I eventually did and teleported home. When I was home, I ended day 74 off by just sorting out my inventory and then going to bed. On day 75, I found out how to turn all of my raw cincennite into cincennite ingots, so that's what I did. The first thing I used the cincennite for was to craft a cincennite sword, which I quickly turned into a cincennite diamond sword because it's a lot better than just a regular diamond sword, and it's a faster attack speed. I use a lot of my experience nuggets to get myself up to level 30 so I could enchant the cincennite diamond sword. But when I enchanted it, I only got unbreaking 3 and looting, which is pretty good, but I still wanted sharpness. And the rest of the day was just rolling enchantments on a book, but not getting anything good. On day 76, I wanted to finish the portal to Eden, and the last thing I needed was amethyst crystals, so I headed down into the cave under my base. Once I got down into the cave, I found a deep dark biome, which is actually one of my first times I've ever been in one, and I broke all the skulk sensors slowly. I also grabbed the skulk catalyst because there's an upgrade for ruby items that requires a skulk catalyst. While I was exploring, I accidentally set off a shrieker. But then I mined it just so it wouldn't get triggered again. Next thing I did was use my map to find an amethyst geode, and then mine my way over to it. Once I got there, I started mining a few amethyst crystals, and then realized I could insta-mine calcite, so I mined a bunch of calcite as well. Once I decided I mined enough, I started building and digging straight up, until I arrived at the surface on the morning of day 77. The first thing I did back at my base was craft a bunch of chests so I could finish my chest wall. The next thing I did was craft a ruby sword because I wanted to craft a fire ruby sword, which was what the skulk catalyst was for. And then I grabbed the amethyst crystals because I wanted to finish the portal to Eden. So I went over and placed them, and when I placed them and lit the portal, I was pretty cautious at first, but then I decided to go in. Oh, God. Are those mobs? Yo, what? This place was insane. A bunch of giant floating islands with just different biomes everywhere. I couldn't quite explore it yet because it would literally be hundreds of blocks I would have to bridge, but it looked really cool nonetheless. Back at my base, I hunted down an enderman I found on my map and killed it with my looting 3 sword and got 3 ender pearls. On day 78, I crafted as many ender pearls as I had into ender eyes and looked at the crafting recipes for them. The next thing I did was head into the nether because I needed a netherite upgrade still. It took a while, but the first thing I found was this weird piglin barn looking thing. So I killed the piglin brutes outside of it and then went inside to loot it. And once I was inside, I found it actually had a netherite upgrade, so that was really lucky. Now, since the journey here was actually really rough and there was a lot of lava, I just decided to build another portal and then head back into the overworld where I would then go to sleep. First thing I did on day 79 was head to the closest village and teleport back to my base. When I was back in my base, I went to enchant the fire ruby sword I had, which was also very high in damage, and realized you couldn't enchant it. So back to the Cincinnati diamond. Since my current Cincinnati diamond sword was pretty bland, I crafted another one and enchanted it, and I got fire aspect 2 and sharpness 4. Back in my base, I turned the Cincinnati into another Cincinnati diamond sword and combined it with my current sword to get an unbreaking 3, looting 3, sharpness 4, and fire aspect 2 sword. Soon thereafter, I grabbed all my diamonds and duplicated the smithing template as many times as I could. And then I ended up with 5 upgrade templates. Next thing you know, I was over at my smithing table and turned all of my diamond armor into netherite. On day 80, I began to run the direction that the end portal was. Near the end of the day, I found the stronghold, so I dug down. And then after a little bit of exploring through a cave, I did find it. Once I was inside, I immediately found the central hub, and I was amazed. The first room I found was what I thought was the main library, but you'll see that later. And then I kept exploring and kept finding all these armory rooms. Soon though, I did actually find the main library. In the library, I found an efficiency 4 book and used an anvil I found earlier to combine it with my pickaxe. And then after almost 15 more minutes of searching, I finally found the end portal. And I didn't have enough eyes of the end. And then I placed a waystone and headed back to my base. Back in my base, I just emptied my inventory out before going to bed. Day 82, I grabbed 2 god apples and a bunch more food because I wanted to go fight the gauntlet in the nether. So I made the trek all the way back. Once I was there, before dropping down, I drank a speed potion and prepared my inventory. And then I went over to where he was and started shooting him to get his attention. This fight was really annoying because it seemed I could only hit him if I aimed directly in the center of his eye. And eventually I dropped and tried to get him to follow, but it took quite some time. And eventually he even de-aggroed and healed all the way. But going back into his line of sight, I got his attention and brought him back into the arena. And about 10 minutes later, I finally got him down to his second phase to where he starts shooting lasers, and I started seeing some actual damage if I didn't hide. Not long after, I saw the next thing he does, which is completely blind you. But the strategy persisted of just run around until he flies at you and take a few hits and hopefully hit him in the eye. And very soon actually, he disappeared again and fully healed after I got him to a quarter of his health. No! What? And another 10 minutes later, I was still fighting him and he was down to a quarter of his health again, so that was pretty good. Didn't take too long, and eventually I did actually end up killing him though. After I killed him, he turned into this weird branch and gave me a blazing eye and a couple more ancient debris. And I checked the uses, and you can make a table that allows you creative flight in a 7x7 area. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then I began to head back to my base. On day 83, I emptied my inventory out and then decided I wanted to go back to the woodland mansion I found way earlier. And so I began the journey over. Once I was there, the first thing I noticed was that he actually didn't heal, but I did know he was on the second floor, so I decided to try to clear the first floor out before heading up there. On the first floor, me being the genius I am, I actually remembered there was a lapis block inside this pillager head, so I got that, and then went around killing the rest of the pillagers. Before I went up to the second floor though, I actually ended up going to sleep. Day 84, I just built up to the second floor, and I looked around and saw an enderman, so I went to kill it, but it teleported away. After I killed all the pillagers that swarmed me, I went outside and I saw the invoker. So I ran at it and started swinging. Once I noticed I was taking a good bit of damage, I actually ran away because a bunch more pillagers spawned that I had to fight, so I killed all of them first. Then I killed these things, which are pretty much just the invoker vexes, but they gave you slowness, and every time I hit the invoker, he would send me flying back, so I just decided to use a bow. Eventually though, I did run up to him and start dealing some serious damage, and he just teleported away. Then I looked on my map to find him and saw he went outside, so I chased him down. Eventually I killed him and got something called a primal essence, which you use to make an imbuing table. And then once I got back to my base, I crafted the imbuing table and was really confused. On day 85, I killed an enderman, and I got the last ender pearls I need to go fight the ender dragon. So I grabbed all my ender pearls and some blaze rods, and I headed into the end. the wildlife. I'm just killing wildlife. And once the dragon was finally dead on day 85, he dropped dragon scales, which was an upgrade for all tools and weapons. Next thing you know, I headed down and grabbed the dragon egg. And then I found out about these weird end ores, which actually I found out during the dragon fight, but I couldn't ruin the epic montage, so. Anyway, I grabbed a bunch of blocks and built up to the other portal because I wanted to go to the far end. And once I threw this ender pearl, I was not ready for what was on the other side. So I built out a block because I was stuck in the portal frame and then looked around and admired for a little while. This is awesome. Once I was done glazing the map, I threw an ender pearl and I landed in a jelly tree, which was kind of funny. And then I started running around a bit exploring and I found out I was in a jungle, so that was kind of cool. Not long after, I found a flying boat and then climbed up to the top of it. This is a boat, right? Once I got on top of it, I broke the anvil because I like anvils, I guess. And then I started heading downward into the bottom of the ship. Once at the bottom of the ship, the first thing I did was take the ender chest. And then I went and opened my first regular chest and the loot was insane. The second and third chests were just as good, but the fourth wasn't the best. And in one of the chests, I got a book called The End for Dummies and read through it and found out that books are for nerds, so I quickly closed it. I actually did find out about a different type of portal though, and I never found one in this 100 days though. Once I was done looting the ship, I put a bunch of the loot in the ender chest because my inventory started to get very full. And then it was off exploring again, where I would end up getting jumped by whatever the hell this thing is. What the boy? He swung first. And then I broke a sea lantern with my fist because I realized it would give me prismarine crystals, which I needed for a bunch of the charms. And then it was off to this dark island. And my screen started bugging out and it actually scared me. Once I got out of it though, I turned around and I saw a shadow person, which that's what it was, and then decided to kill it. It didn't drop anything though. So I kept exploring and eventually I found the actual normal end and I saw these giant ice crystals off in the distance floating in space. That's cool. The next thing I found was this like obsidian tree full of shulkers, which was pretty annoying, but I did eventually kill them all. And then I dropped down and I saw an end whale right in front of me. Hi. But continued exploring because I had to see this biome up close. And I want to see what this is. And then I headed over to another one of these end ships. The first thing I did was grab the dragon head, which I forgot to do on the other one. And then the anvil, the ender chest. Wow. Whoever's this is loaded. And then all the other chests, but they weren't nearly as good as the first boat. Just wait till the video drops. Making a set of every armor in better Minecraft. Jesus Christ, bro. But I also did get a totem of void undying, so I can't complain. And then I emptied my inventory into my ender chest. Peep the strat. Then I built up to one of those giant icebergs in the sky and found out it was made with ice. What? What do you do with this? Dense emerald ice. Ancient emerald ice. Oh, then you can make frostwalker. But once I got to the top of it, I realized I was getting really cold, so I jumped down. Alright, I'm chilling, bro. I'll get off of it. And then I saw a cave underneath an island, and it decided I wanted to go inside of it. So I went ahead and grabbed a bunch of blocks, built over to the island, enderpearled, and mined down to it. Once I mined down to it, I realized there was literally nothing but these cave bushes, and everything else was pretty boring, so I headed out. Once I got out, I looted another ship, but once again, it wasn't really good. And then I kept exploring because I wanted to find an end city, but I never did. One thing I did find though was that, which looked like an end city, so I decided to grab a bunch of blocks and blah 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 blah. Over at what I would later call the end hotel, there was literally nothing but an ender chest, so I went up to the top of it. At the top, I found a chest with some okay loot and a waystone, which is where I learned that you could take waystones in between dimensions. Day 89, when I returned back to my base, I emptied out my inventory and my ender chest, and then was pretty much back in the end after that. Back in the end, I had a map that led to an end city that I found from a crashed end ship, but I literally couldn't find the footage of it, but I do have it. And on the way to it, I actually found this weird end village looking thing, which didn't have any loot or villagers, but it was actually pretty cool. And then I was at this weird crystal island, which are crystal isles, let me know. And then I found the end city and pearled over. The end city didn't have a ship, but I'm assuming that's because the map I had was from a crash ship, which was this city ship. And I started heading in and was immediately bombarded with tons of shulkers. While I was flying up, I found a bunch of shulker spawners and managed to find 2 of them. Once I made it to the lairs with a bunch of chests, I looted all the chests, but this place literally had nothing that I really wanted. Besides another void totem, which was pretty cool. And another. And the last chest I opened had a few diamonds and another void totem. And then it was off exploring again. And this time I actually think I found my favorite structure. And this was an end ancient city, which even had a lit version of the portal from the overworld ancient cities. And after quite a bit of messing around and looking at quests, I went through it and it brought me back to the main end island. And then I just ended up going home and going to sleep. Back at my base on day 91, I sorted out my inventory and all my chests again. And then I looked at all the mini bosses in the overworld and decided I wanted to try to fight some. The first one I wanted to try to fight was an amethyst golem, so I headed down into the cave under my base and tried to find another geode. The first geode I dug to actually had an amethyst golem in it, and it wasn't even much of a fight. And then I took one of the dragon scales and made a dragon anvil, which is pretty much just an anvil that can't break. So all those anvils I gathered in the end had no purpose. I also made a bunch of diamond swords because I wanted to enchant a new one and make it into a dragon sword with one of my dragon scales. And then I came out with a pretty decent sword, but not too well. And then after I made the sword netherite, I made it a dragon sword. Day 92 I made my silk touch pickaxe netherite, and then also made that dragon. The next thing I did was make a bow because I figured a dragon bow would be really good. And then after a few tries, I got an unbreaking 3 and power 4 bow. Right after, I got another power 4 and punch 2 bow, so I went back to my base and combined the two. And then soon after, I made it a dragon bow. Towards the end of the day, I took a waystone and put it on the Sakura mountain right across from my base because I just wanted a quick way over there. On day 93, I decided I wanted to fight another boss. So I took a void lily and placed it outside and tried to look at the particles to follow them, but they weren't appearing. After I realized my particles were off, I turned them on and then started to follow them the direction I needed to go until I was directly above it. Once I was pretty much directly above it, I placed down the flower and followed the particles and mined down. Eventually, I knew I was really close because I saw the Void Blossom's name tag appear. After a little bit of searching around, I actually ended up finding it, and before I dropped in, I shot it a few times with my bow. Once I was in there, I ran around and destroyed all of its healing flowers, and then ran in to get a few hits off. But it was doing a lot of damage to my armor very quickly. And then on the last phase, it put cages around the healing flowers, but that was no problem for me as I just built over them. Yeah, so that boss fight was a little harder than the other ones, but still very easy. And it gave me 2 void thorns. The quest completion gave me an earth dive spear, which allowed me to teleport short distances through walls, which was kinda neat, but not very useful. And then I just headed out the cave. Day 94, once I was out of the cave, I decided I would just explore instead of going straight back to my base. I found one of those towers I found on day 1, and yeah, it had stuff in it, I guess. And then I found a safe haven, which was neat. And then I didn't find anything else the rest of the day. On day 95, I found a ruined portal, which was neat. It had some blue obsidian. And then I was in the savannah and I saw some giraffes. So then I killed them, obviously. They hit me first. And then while I was running through this oak jungle, I found a giant palace. So obviously I had to explore it. Once I got up inside it, I destroyed one of the spawners and then opened a barrel and got nothing. I went up the waterfall though and did get a chest with a couple diamonds in it, so that was alright. But then I jumped down and headed into the more central area where I got jumped and actually started taking some real damage. And then I headed into this side room, which was a library. It didn't really have any books or anything though, but it had these skeletons chasing me with books in their hands. I don't even know what the next room was, but it was full of cave spiders and creepers, so it was pretty annoying. And then I just ended up going to sleep in the middle of the place. The first room I went into was a bunch of skeletons with netherite boots and diamond armor. So I was a little scared because there were a lot of them. But in the middle of all that, there was an aquarium, so I guess that site made up for it. And then there were these random upside down things that just defied gravity. And I found a hidden room, and it had a wither skeleton skull in it that I mined, so that was actually pretty sick. Next thing you know, there were these weird things shooting fireworks at me that were invisible. And the next room was like an arena with like a pyramid, so I climbed it and then jumped into the next floor. At the very top, there was a chest, which was pretty underwhelming, so I left. Once I left, I found this weird pillager thing and went up in it and found a ton of them waiting for me. Oh, there's so many. Wait, there's actually so many. After exploring the top, I jumped down and went and explored the bottom. Before I dropped though, I crafted an abyss watcher so I could teleport back at any point. The bottom of it kind of reminded me of the stronghold, but it had literally no loot in it besides a little bit of bread here and there. So I left. I started day 92 out by clearing my inventory and sorting it, and then I decided I wanted to explore the Nether a little more. The first place I went was to the Nether fortress just to explore a little bit to see if I missed anything. And since I didn't, I went back to running around and I found a bastion in this weird biome, so I killed all the things in it, and then looted the chests, which weren't bad actually. But the bastion was corrupt, so I just went around exploring more. I saw this weird thing on the map and went to it, and it was a nether mine shaft, which I ran around for a little bit, but didn't do too much in. Once I left the nether mine shaft though, I found another fortress and explored that for a little while. While I was exploring, I found a black stone altar looking thing, and it had a respawn anchor in the middle, and I looked to see if it was a boss, but I couldn't figure out for sure. Back at my base, I looked in the book of bosses, and I found a black stone golem, which it might have been, but I was kind of scared to spawn it because it said it would destroy my world. Back in the nether, there was this really cool biome, so obviously I had to go explore it, and I stumbled across a nether jungle temple. It did normal jungle temple things like filling the entire place with lava, and it had pretty much not any loot. So I went back to the nether fortress, put down the waystone, and then teleported back to my base. On day 99, I grabbed all the end ores I recently smelted up, and then looked at the uses for them for about an hour and a half. I found an ore called Eternium, which is stronger than Netherite, and you need an endstone smelter to craft it, so I headed into the end to get some endstone. In the end, I got the endstone bricks I would need, and then headed back. Back at my base, I crafted the endstone smelter and placed it above my furnaces. I also found out about layering ores, which was insanely expensive to get Netherite diamond. It makes your gear insane. Dragon armor is better than Netherite diamond armor, but Netherite diamond tools are a lot better than dragon tools. So I went to sleep confused that night. Once I woke up on day 100, I turned most of my Netherite into Netherite iron, and then one of the Netherite iron into Netherite gold, and then the Netherite gold into Netherite emerald, and then I used a disgusting amount of upgrade templates to turn my Netherite pickaxe into a Netherite iron, into a Netherite gold, into a Netherite emerald pickaxe. And then I spent the rest of the day flexing. But that was pretty much it. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe. It was a lot of fun. I actually do want to do another video on this, but I also want to do like an ARC video, so I want to try that out. But yeah, see y'all.